Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. Welcome back to the show, Rick.
Thanks very much for inviting me on, Jim. It's always a pleasure.
Rick, the stock market as we speak on Wednesday up slightly. Is that just there to tease you after 7 weeks of losing?
Well, you have to keep in mind that when we're in a real bear market and things are coming down hard, that means there's so many redemptions that the three companies that own the stock market through proxies, the ownership is vested in BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. All right, they own pretty much everything. So when they get up in the morning, they're not thinking, boy, I got to dump everything. But eventually, with the attrition over time, the bear market will pick up some momentum, and you'll have redemptions that force sales from the really huge players. And I've made the point before that that when State Street and BlackRock turn seller of Apple, that there's no bottom. You know, it's not going to find some comfy zone price at $80 or $60 or even $40 or maybe even $20. So, but we're a long way. It's hard to say how it's going to unfold over time. You know, the first phase of the bear market began on January 4th, and it was only last week with the with the hard selling that we reached the target that I had put out on the E-mini S&Ps. It was down around 38.50. But we've overshot that by enough that according to my trading rules, the rally is going to be corrective. So we're in that corrective rally now, and I will say it doesn't have much vigor. And I use Apple as a bellwether, and Apple has been particularly anemic lately, and that's a bad sign for the market as a whole.
Mm-hmm. So when you're in a situation like this, is it run for the sell and run for the hills? Can you have a back action of some kind of defensive play here?
Well, just what we've talked about over the last year or two. You gotta be immersed, not fully immersed, but you really have to be easing into things that everybody hates. And of course, bonds is one, and gold is the other. So, my friend Doug Bainfield calls that the barbell strategy. He's a financial advisor with Morgan Stanley Dean Witter in Boulder, and I had been holding off on the bond side. You know that I've been projecting higher rates, specifically on a 10-year note. I was looking for 3.24%. We got up to 3.16 or 17, I think. So we got pretty close. So it's possible that the rally that we've seen in the bonds will mark a very important low in bond prices, but also a high in yields. It's still tentative, but I noticed just for the last day or two that TLT, which is a vehicle that you can use to trade the bonds, it's an equity-based vehicle. Each little leg up is taking out a previous peak. So that's good action, but it's still, we're off a bottom of around 112, only trading at 119 now. So percentage-wise, we got a 5 or 6% gain, not bad. But we're still not in the all clear zone. I would say with TLT above 123, the bullish case is going to start looking better, meaning we've seen a top in major top in interest rates. And, of course, that would not be good news because the reason it's topping is because we're going into a very, very deep recession.
Now, you said gold. Gold seems to be doing okay. What about gold miners?
They pretty much suck. I mean, they've looked so bad for so long. and they've underperformed gold for good reason. I guess it costs a lot of money to get gold out of the ground with all the exploration and drilling costs. And it's just a tough, if you ever watch that show, the reality show about gold mining, you know how tough it is to be in that business. So we've had a tentative bottom. I'm looking at GDXJ, which is a vehicle that tracks the exploration companies, what they call junior gold miners. And just within the last couple of weeks, we had a potentially important low. My target was 34.10, and we got down as low as 35.08, so a little less than $1. So it was a good place for a significant rally to develop, and you can only keep your fingers crossed. From a technical standpoint, we're 39.41 right now. We need to rally above 42.31 on GDXJ before you can start celebrating the mining companies.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, are oil prices going to be the thing that bring this whole house of cards down? Because everything is connected to the price of energy. Everything in your house at one time was in a truck or on a rail car or on a ship.
It's the oil hike, the price rise is kind of self-limiting. You know, when it gets up to a certain threshold, and I think we're above that threshold now, it puts the world in a depression. And you can see the implosion most crucially in China right now. And it's just amazing that I look at the chart and I've sort of flip-flopped on, well, crude has made an important top. I thought it may have done that with the last high at 114 or so. But, you know, I'm looking at a pattern on the daily chart that goes back to late 2021. We had this huge rally in 2022 in the first quarter, and then it pulled back big into late March. And since then, you know, we've been chopping our way higher. And oddly enough, I mean, I use my own technical method, but I thought, well, I'd see what Edwards and McGee say in their classical book on technical analysis, and this pattern isn't in there. Typically, their consolidation patterns, they don't have this much strength. Most of them are, you get a little wedging, pennants, a falling channel, things like that. But in this case, gold is essentially moving up in a correction off this huge leg. So it's almost like the correction has been scaling Mount Everest, and it's been doing pretty well. So I still think that there's a very critical resistance there with crude at 114.33. That's basis the July contract, and that's $4.33 over where we're trading at this instant. So if it breaks above that, you don't even, well, I'm going to say you don't even want to think about that. But to me, the target, which is $140, is, there's no way you could get there unless it really spikes, and it certainly won't get there on the demand factor, because as I just mentioned, China's on its ass right now. The manufacturing is imploding. So the only way I could see this pop up to 140 would be if there's some very significant disruption in the global oil distribution system. So, but I'm just kind of looking at the chart, and even though it doesn't tell me what makes sense, I have to follow it. So again, 114 and change is going to be a crucial price for crude, and I'm looking at it sort of like in that sci-fi movie where we're not sure whether the meteorite is going to miss Earth or not, and so that's where we are.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about food costs and food supplies? The leaders in Sri Lanka say that the energy and food crunch has already hit them. They can't afford fuel. They can't afford to plant crops. They can't afford to buy food. They can't afford anything. And Right now, they're begging for international help. Is this going to become a worldwide phenomena?
Well, I'm just wondering who we're going to beg for international help. You know, I guess America is capable of producing large amounts of food, enough to feed everybody, but for a couple reasons, you look at these hugely inflated prices in the grocery store, and you have to think, well, geez, maybe we ain't seen nothing yet, because we've got the delivery prices for diesel fuel for trucks that bring us that food going up and up and up. And we also have this fertilizer shortage, and it's hard to imagine everything sort of taking off from the plateau where it's at right now. But if you Americans are still feeding themselves a year from now, it could be with considerably less protein, and everybody cutting back considerably. So I guess the good news is that we'll have a lot less diabetes.
Mm. And also on the medical front, then are they trying to create a crisis and try to develop pills that get you through this or something?
I'm sorry, a crisis in what?
The food crisis, could the pharmaceutical companies somehow come up with pills? Hi, if you buy this expensive pill, it'll help you get through hard times with food supplies.
Oh, that sounds very tasty. I don't think they'll get any further than that with that than they got with the Ministry of Truth idea.
Uranium, if we need more energy, why is it not more expensive, and why are more people not building atomic power plants?
Well, because of the difficulties of disposing of plutonium and the evidence on the basis of Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, that a nuclear accident is really, it's not local, it's global. And the Japanese reactor as well. So there are dangers there, and it's not like there weren't regulatory impediments to clearing the way for a new nuclear power generator. But it seems inevitable to me that it's coming. You know, when you look at how long it's going to take to bring, let's say, wind on stream, and now, of course, the story is pretty well known that the energy inputs to build a wind tower and then to take it down to maintain it, it's like you don't gain anything. So, and nobody wants the wind farm in their backyard anyway. All right, so nuclear is the only thing that, from an energy producing standpoint, can take us into the future. The wild card, I guess, would be battery storage. But the places like Germany, for one, that's gone all in with wind power and other solar power sources, is discovering that at certain times of the day they can't, when it gets cloudy, they can't generate enough. They have to have enough backup power to keep everybody going. That the wind turbines, that the purpose of them is self-defeating. So yeah, I think nukes are going to happen, and there are a number of different types of reactors that have been, I'm not going to say technologically perfected, but they are, I guess, pretty safe. When I say safe, of course, it's acknowledging that a little bit of plutonium could kill everybody on the Earth if it were distributed in the right way, or I'd say the wrong way. So if anything slows down nukes, it will be a global recession, which cuts back on the demand for fossil fuel. So we'll get the old argument, what do we need nukes for if we're glutted with natural gas? And so that's also a factor.
Yes, Canada doesn't lack natural gas at all, but we have a federal government that's very reluctant to use it or export it. Because we have a province, Quebec, that believes it's a country. It doesn't want natural gas pipelines. It would rather import its oil and gas from Saudi Arabia for some reason rather than English-speaking Albertans. So Canada has a little internal problem there where we're sitting on top of a 200-year proven supply of natural gas here in British Columbia, and a government that reluctantly is allowing the export of some, but it takes forever to build an LNG plant, and we don't have a lot of, we have one major project online, a minor one, and that's it. So the rest of the world loves natural gas, but for some reason, the green people here don't. Even though all the gas line leaks that they talk about, the transport leaks, they're all in Russia. The Russians don't care if they violate the environment. They don't care if they violate anybody.
Well, most countries don't care, especially the major energy producers, for obvious reasons. And we'll have to wait for the breakthrough. I certainly want to be long stocks in any market the day when someone solves either the nuclear fusion energy problem, which supposedly we may have a working reactor by, I think it's the year 2030 or 40. It's a ways off. Or if someone licks the battery problem, and I don't mean literally lick the terminals, because we all know where that leads. But you look at someone like Elon Musk with all the operations he's got to improve power storage, and it's not inconceivable that we won't have a storage solution that's going to make energy easier to download, I guess you could say, from solar sources, or much cheaper.
Of course. Now, in Vancouver several years ago, a 15-year-old girl invented a flashlight that would run off the heat on your hand. I haven't heard anything more about that invention. She's either been bought out or knocked off.
Yeah, I don't want to get stuck in the dark with that flashlight.
Yeah. Rick, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Well, thanks for inviting me on, Jim. It really was a pleasure, as always.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. If you have any questions for Rick or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.